All right, welcome back to another session of the Undisputed Leadership Summit. Today, another special guest, and he's been on my podcast. If you follow my podcast, his name is Jim Harshaw, and he is the host of, he's changed his podcast name a few times. So now it used to be called Wrestling for Success.
Wrestling with Success. Yeah.
Wrestling with Success, and now it's Success Through Failure.
Yeah.
And Jim has done TED Talks on this topic, as well as done many other talks and been on other podcasts as well. And his podcast is a phenomenal one. If you guys want to check it out, it's called Success Through Failure, and he's going to go over that topic with us today again, and also go through his blueprint, and it's 4 steps to success through failure.
Right.
Welcome to the session, Jim.
Thanks, Luke. Good to be here.
Awesome. And I love talking to you, like always. And I always, resonate really well. And I think everybody does as well with failure. And I feel like not a lot of people the mass anyways, do not deal with failure well. And I think that you touch on a subject on how to really dig deep within yourself and use that failure in order for you to attain success in whatever you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we see successful people, whether it's the guy across the street or, the business person or the entertainer on television or the professional athlete we see on Saturday, right? We just see these successful people all around us. We might work with them. They might live near us, whatever the case might be. And we think it's easy for them, right? So we say, okay, I've got this goal. Maybe it's to get a promotion, start a business, lose weight, whatever the case might be. We have these goals, right? Some people write them down, some don't, but they have these sort of desires, these wants in their life, and a lot of times they'll take just a couple of steps towards it. Let's say you want to lose 15 pounds, for example, and you start working out, and a couple weeks later you step on the scale and you see you haven't lost weight, or maybe you gained a pound or something like that. And a lot of people absorb these little failures as reasons that they can't succeed when they don't, and there certainly are bigger failures, getting fired from your job or relationship failures, or, just bigger things that happen in our life. But I want to, look at both the big ones and the small ones. And we always see those as reasons that we can't succeed, when they're actually the opposite. They are reasons that we actually can succeed, because when we fail, when I'm teaching my kids how to ride their bike and they crash, the fact that they actually rode their bike and tried and fell over, they're now going to have a better opportunity to be better the next time they try, right? And the next time and the next time. So failure is a reason that we can succeed, not a reason that we can't succeed. And we look at successful people, and we're seeing the tip of the iceberg, right? We're seeing their success. We're seeing the athlete on the top of the podium, or playing on Saturday or Sunday. We're seeing the successful business leader speaking in front of an audience, or selling their company for big dollars. What we don't see is their failures, their struggles, the reasons why they should quit, and the reasons why most other people quit. And what we don't realize is that those people are pushing through those, right? And that's what I reveal on my podcast. Is I interview astronauts and CEOs and billionaires, professional athletes, and we talk about all their habits and reasons for success, but we talk about their failures, right? And I've had, Luke, man, you've heard some of them. I mean, I've had some just incredible stories of failure where you're just like, oh man, well, you should have just hung it up right there, but they push through, and they've achieved a level of success that most people just dream of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that, because I feel like it's failure is part of the recipe for success, and you touch on that greatly. And now you've been through a lot. You were a Division I all-star in wrestling, and that's a Division I champion, right?
Division I All-American, top eight. So I was on the podium.
Top 8. Ooh, I heard it's a tough grind to get up there to even the top 8. So you've been through wrestling. I know, I do the Muay Thai and I've done some grappling arts, but a lot of guys have always given a lot of respect to wrestlers because of the grind and the way they train. And it's like it's literally blood, sweat, and tears.
Sure.
So now, what did you learn through wrestling, and how did you develop that and start applying that to your life afterwards?
Yeah, sure. So if you see my earbuds are in upside down, I can't put them in like the traditional way because I've got cauliflower ear, and this one is particularly, the hole is closed up particularly a lot more than the other one. So this one falls out a lot. So if you see me doing that, it's because of my cauliflower ear from wrestling. So what I learned from wrestling, right? My goal, every wrestler's goal and dream is to be a Division I All-American, right? It had been my dream since I started wrestling when I was 6 years old. And I finally got to college and I'd failed in high school at achieving my dream then, which was to be a state champion. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even, not that I wasn't a state champion, I didn't even place in the top 6 in high school state championships. But I had some coaches who had seen me compete and had worked with me a little bit over the summer. So I had a couple great college coaches recruit me, and I had an opportunity to be more or less a walk-on to the program at the University of Virginia. My freshman year roommate was one of the best wrestlers in the country, in Matt Roth. And I really didn't know if I even had any place on the team, right? But lo and behold, I made the starting lineup as a freshman, and I had a shot at achieving my dream of being a Division I All-American. Division I National Wrestling Championships in the United States they're huge. I mean, there's over 100,000 people attend the 3-day event that determines not only the national team champions but also the individual Division I All-Americans. It was at Madison Square Garden in this past spring, sold out, 19,000 people for the finals, and live on ESPN during March Madness, during the biggest television sporting event of the year. And so wrestling is a big deal, especially at the national championships level. And so I got there my freshman year, but I failed to get there, failed to get onto the podium, failed to achieve my dream. As a matter of fact, I didn't even win any matches. I went 0-2, barbecue. I was done. My sophomore year, again, I qualified for the national championships, but again, I failed. I fell short of my goal. My junior year was just pretty much a repeat of the prior 2 years. I got to the national championships, but I failed again. I won a couple of matches that year, but I failed, right? And my season ended pretty much the same as the last couple. My face in a towel in the locker room in tears, wondering, why in the hell can't I do this? I see other people doing this. I see guys that I know that I grew up around in high school, going to other schools. Now they're in college, and some of these guys had achieved their dream, and I can't. What's wrong with me? I can't possibly run more miles. I can't lift more weights. I can't watch more film. There's not enough hours in the day, right? There's nothing more I could possibly do. And so I had one more year, and by the way, we've all been there, right? So for the viewer that's watching this, like, you've been there too, right? You've had that face buried in a towel moment, right? Why? And you've had that sort of voice in your head saying, why can't I do this? I look around, why can't everybody else do this, but I can't? I'm doing everything I possibly can, but I can't get there, right? But I had one more shot. So my senior season, again, I qualified for the national championship. So this time I actually had won 3 matches, and you've got to win 4 to become an All-American, to finish in the top 8 in the country. And I've got to now wrestle the 4th ranked wrestler in the country who was on the number 1 ranked team in the country at the University of Minnesota. And I'd never beaten anybody ranked in the top 5 in the country before. So now I've got to overcome not only this guy, right, but my own self-doubt, like the words in my head going, Jim, you failed and you failed and you failed. You failed in high school. You failed every year in college. Why is this one any different, right? So I've got to overcome that. Right. And I've got to draw on and learn from those past failures so that I can beat this guy that's in front of me. So I step to the center of the match. There's 14,000 people in the arena. Mom and dad are up in the nosebleeds, screaming. And so I step to the center of the match, shake hands like you do at the beginning of a wrestling match. And 7 minutes later, I did it. Won. I was an All-American. And it was just this great moment in my life, this 17 years in the making, and it came down to this 7 minutes. It was all on the line in that 7 minutes, and it happened for me. It happened.
Wow.
And so let's fast forward 15 years. I'm out in the real world, and we always talk about athletes and the great lessons that we learn in athletics and how we can apply those to life, and you can be more successful. Well, 15 years later, I find myself with wife, 3 children at the time. I now have 4. I had 3 children, and I had a failed business. We had debt up to our eyeballs. My relationship with my wife was not going well. I wasn't spending enough time with my kids. My fitness and health was at the worst it had been in my entire life. And it just hit me one day. And, when like I said, my business had failed, and I was looking through Craigslist for a job, and I'm thinking, how did this happen? Right? This wasn't supposed to happen to Jim Harshaw, the All-American, the Olympic hopeful, the guy who was the man, at one point. How did this wasn't supposed to happen to me, right? I wasn't supposed to be here. And I was feeling that same failure, that same self-doubt, that same voice in my head started coming back saying, yeah, Jim, you succeeded, but you failed all those other times, right? And I consciously hit the pause button on my life, and I said, okay, if I could eventually turn failure into success and succeed because of that failure as a wrestler, as an athlete, how can I replicate that in the real world? I really did. I stopped and I looked and I said, what was in place in my life when I was an athlete, an elite athlete? What was in place that allowed me to push through failure, to go through, like you said, the grind that wrestling is? I mean, there's a lot of MMA fighters who have been champions, some of the top guys, Hamid Wall and Josh Koscheck and a bunch of these guys who have said college wrestling is harder than MMA. And I've never fought, in the ring, in the cage, but I believe it in terms of maybe not the fight so much, but as the grind of practice every day. Practice, it's ridiculous. I mean, wrestlers are notoriously overtrained. It's insane. It's insane what we go through. And I work in athletics now, and when I talk to people who have other sports, they're like, yeah, wrestlers are insane. And so what allowed me to push through and do these insane workouts that most people will never do a workout anything close to what wrestlers do and what I did every day for 17 years, 5 years really in college. What allowed me to do that, even though I was failing, right? But to get up tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., show up by myself in the arena, grab a 45-pound plate, put it above my head, and start running up and down the stairs until I puked. Look, what allowed me to push through that and train through that and eventually push through that failure and find success. And so I broke it down, and this is what I've discovered. So, Luke, here's the 4 steps to this blueprint. Number 1, I knew what was important to me. Right? I knew what my values were. At the time, I probably couldn't have verbalized and actually told you what my core values were. But looking back, I realized that what I valued was the respect that successful wrestlers got. And I valued the discipline and the type of people that were my mentors and my coaches and the Olympians and the guys that I looked up to. I respected the hell out of them because they were respected people. Other people respected them. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have that All-American status next to my name. Right. So I knew what was important to me, and I valued hard work and discipline and respect and being respected. And so that only got me so far. That got me like my freshman year. That got me to the national championships. It got me on the starting lineup. It got me to the national championships, but it didn't get me on the podium. And then something changed my sophomore year. So let me back up. That was the sort of step 1. Step 1 is knowing what your core values are, right? And step 2 was having goals that align with those core values. My sophomore year, I made a huge leap. I started writing down my goals, identifying my goals and the action plans necessary to get there. The people and organizations who could help me get there, the obstacles that are going to confront me along the way, injuries, illness, bad calls by the officials, all the things that can go wrong, right? I identified those and kind of at least had those in my mind. They were in my goal plan. And so I wrote those down. I made a huge leap that year. Won my first conference championship, got the national championships. And so at that point, it's like, I had these goals that aligned with my core values. And I look at my life 15 years later, and I didn't know what my values were. I really didn't know what was important to me, right? There's a lot of transition going on in my life. I had kids and wife and business, and I really didn't know anymore what was important to me, right? Where I was going. And I didn't have goals that aligned with those values, right? My goals were totally out of whack with with what my values were. I didn't even have written goals, but sort of in my head, I had these goals, and they were out of alignment, right? When I was a wrestler, when I was an athlete, when you look at elite athletes and elite performers in business and sports and entertainment, their goals align with their values. That was the first two steps. Then I realized as an athlete, I had what I call an environment of excellence, right? And this environment of excellence includes having a coach to guide me, kick me in the ass when I needed a boot, to tell me when I was wrong, to praise me when I was doing things well. I had teammates to hold me accountable, and teammates I held them accountable. So we had this mutual accountability. I had, nutritionist, sports psychologist, athletic trainer, nutritionist. I was watching film, right? The content that I was watching and listening to, I would watch film of myself competing. I would watch film of my opponents. I would watch film of the world championships, right? So I was taking in this content, filling my mind with the right things, right? When I was driving, I would listen to this audio that was this positive affirmations audio, right? Who does that, right? That's kind of crazy, but like, that's what I was doing. And that was one of these things that I put together in what I call environment of excellence, that I really started, creating and developing consciously my junior year. And again, my junior year, I made another leap, right? Once I put this environment of excellence together, I started avoiding some of the people who maybe I should have needed to avoid, spending more time with the people I needed to spend time with. I would literally go home from practice, eat, do my schoolwork, and I'd call my coach. I'm like, hey man, can I come over and watch film? So I'd go hang out with my coach, who was an All-American himself at one point, and watch film. And so I would associate with these people, right? And then, so that was the third step. And in my life, 15 years later, I didn't have this environment of excellence, right? I didn't have a coach to guide me. I didn't have people holding me accountable and people who I was holding accountable. I didn't have these, wasn't really spending the time to listen to the right audios and watch the film and put the right content into my head. And then the fourth step was this. At the end of my junior year, I said, I can't run more miles. I can't lift more weights. I can't watch more film. There's not enough hours in the day. What else can I do? There's nothing more I could do. And last step I realized was this. It was follow through. It was execution, because whenever you have all these things in place, whenever you have coaches to tell you, when you're going the wrong direction, when you know what your values are, when you have goals that align with those values, you're able to push through failure and actually learn from it, because you have people feeding you the right information, giving you the hard, honest truth. Okay, you failed. Here's why you failed. And it doesn't beat you down. It lifts you up, because you know what your values are. You know what your goals are. And you know that this hard truth is helping you get there, right? So that was the fourth step. And that allowed me to reach my dream of being an All-American. I got invited to the Olympic Training Center to try to make the Olympic team. And
Nice.
all kinds of opportunities came out of that. But it got me my goal. It got me to my podium moment, in front of 14,000 people in the arena. It was just an amazing moment. And so when I recreated this in my life, Luke, these 4 steps, everything changed. Everything's changed. I mean, my health and fitness, I've run a half marathon since that time. My relationship with my wife is far better than it's ever been, especially since then. My goodness. And I have goals that are aligned with my values. I know what my values are. They're faith, family, fit, and fun. And I can go through those. Faith is self-explanatory. Family is why I do everything, from my business and everything else. Fit means not only fitness, which is one, but also fit in terms of I need to have a job or an occupation that fits my values and everything else that I want to achieve in life. And fun is, I just value fun. Fun, it means playing with my kids. It might mean going on adventures or mountain biking or whatever the case might be. But those are my values, and I have goals that align with those values. And there's 4 areas for setting goals. And those are: number 1, relationships; number 2, self; number 3, health; and number 4 is wealth. And that's the order. Because a lot of people want to put that wealth goal first. When you put it last, everything, that the wealth just amplifies everything else. It's going to make your relationships better. It's going to make your self-improvement and development goals better. It's going to make your health and fitness better. But if you have those things flip-flops, if you make all the money and your health is still a mess, your relationships are still a mess, and not growing as a person, your life just goes downhill even faster. So, so those are the 4 areas. But everything's changed in my life since I've discovered this blueprint, and now I'm teaching it to people. So it's been a lot of fun.
Nice, nice. I love your story. I want to backtrack a little bit on when you went up against the number one guy. Oh, sorry, the number one team, the Minnesota University of Minnesota,
Right.
but he ranked number 4 in nationals.
Yep.
And when you went up against him, what was going through your mind? Because you had such a young age, and
Yeah.
you weren't,
Yeah. Yeah.
going through you didn't make these steps yet, like this blueprint, right? So what was going through your head? You had a feeling that you were going to lose because you had all these references from the past that you were going to lose and that you're not going to make it. Walk us through what was going through your mind at that time?
So I'm going to start from the beginning with this one because this is so important. I had a sports psychologist. I had a mental coach. Okay. So, and he taught me to stop worrying about winning and start worrying about process, right? Process and execution. Because this is what I know, Luke. I know you, as an athlete, you can't control winning and losing. And people look at me cross-eyed when I say that, but here's what you can control. You can control what you do. You can control how you train. You can control your nutrition. You can control the amount of sleep that you get. You can control who your coaches are for the most part. You can control your mindset. You can control all these things. You can control the moves that you execute. You can control, whether you hold your head down or you hold your head up. You can control the words that go through your mind after you fail. Whether it's the big failures or the little failures, you get a point scored on you or you lose a match, you can control the words. You can't control winning and losing. And when you focus on the process and fall in love with the process, it's okay. The outcome is okay. And I realized my senior season, all I can do is execute. All I can do is execute and let the process take care of itself. And if I achieve my dream, great. If I fail, great. I've outlined that to the best of my ability and my coach's ability and all my people in my environment of excellence, we've outlined the best possible plan for me to get from here to there. And if it works, great. If it doesn't, all I know is that I did my best. And when I finally realized that, when I finally let go of success, and fell in love with the process, the grind, the pain, the suffering that it takes to get to success at any level. When I just embraced that, everything changed. So what was going through my mind when I stepped on the mat? Not a whole lot. It was incredibly not a whole lot. It was have fun.
Which is a good thing.
Go for it, man. Honestly, it was this moment where I could give a crap less if it was the Olympic champion in front of me. I really had this amazing moment of clarity where I don't care who you are. I'm gonna dominate you. Win or lose, I'm gonna crush you. The outcome didn't really matter to me, and I attacked with everything I had, and it was just this amazing match. And I started out, dominating from the beginning. He caught up a little bit in the end, and it was close towards the end, but it was just so much fun. It was so much fun, and that whole season was so much fun because I came to that realization of focus on the process, not the outcome. My sports psychologist didn't invent this. I didn't invent this. John Wooden, the famous UCLA basketball coach, Hall of Famer, he didn't really invent this, but he always talked about focusing on the process, not the outcome. And that's all you can control. So in your life, for the viewer, what is the process that you have to put in place? And you can go through these 4 steps because it helps you really figure out what that process is for you specifically, because it's different for everybody. It's different for every health goal, relationship goal, self goal, wealth goal. It's different for everybody. You've got to figure out what it is, what your core values are, what your goals are that align with those core values, what your environment of excellence is, and then what your follow through and execution plan is. And once you put these things into place, it just changes everything, and you fall in love with that process of getting there.
I love what the process plus execution portion of things. And when you were talking about going into the match and being very clear-headed, because ahead of time with your sports psychologist, you guys prepared to pretty much, being ready to die, right?
Yep.
Kind of,
absolutely.
And
absolutely.
And,
can I give you one interesting point here?
Yeah.
So everybody prepares differently, right? And I was so thankful that I had this crucible experience as an athlete of just being in the fire, and wrestling is such an exhausting, humbling, humiliating sport. Even, when you lose, it's just, even when you win, it's just exhausting and humbling, but I learned my peak performance state. Right? Everybody needs to put the time and effort in to figure out what is your peak performance state. What are the routines that you need to go through? The morning routines, the daily routines, the weekly, monthly, yearly routines that you need to go through to figure out your peak performance state. And one of them for me, Luke, was right before I stepped on the mat, which is this high pressure, intense situation, right? I instructed my coach, the assistant coach at the time. I said, tell me a joke. I need a joke. I need you to break the ice. I need you to make me smile. And once I smiled, it just loosened the tension just flowed out of my body, and I could just be
Uh,
myself instead of like this build up, build up, build up. It was just break the ice, go have fun, man. Let's go do this. You've trained, you've done everything you can possibly do at this point. Go have a ball, go kick some ass. Sorry to be cursing on this. I don't like to curse very much, but that's just kind of what's coming out of me. You're pulling it out of me.
wow, I like that, man. I like that, and I guess, I mean, to calm those nerves, and I just want to one last point, because this really intrigues me, because I work with I manage fighters as well,
Okay.
and I see the stress levels go up, and every individual manages it differently, and sometimes it takes a long time to develop, to calm those nerves. How was it for you? I mean, I know you've been wrestling since you were 6, but was there a key thing, a key point where helped you go into these matches more calm and more in that flow state?
Yeah, there for me it was actually thinking about it, actually paying attention. Okay, so all right, so last time, I put my earbuds in and I was listening to Metallica, right? And I'm getting all pumped up before the match, and I go out and I dud, right? I wrestle terrible. I get tired early in the match. Okay, that didn't work. Okay, next time I try something else. That didn't work. Maybe that worked a little bit. Maybe I do that a little bit more, take that to more of an extreme. So I actually got to the point, Luke, where I would bring a newspaper or magazine. This is before we had cell phones and, could flip through Twitter or whatever. But I would bring something for me to read. And I'm an outdoors guy, mountain climbing, rock climbing, mountain biking and all the good stuff, whitewater kayaking. So I would bring like outdoors magazines, and I would literally, if I would do my whole warm up, I go through my whole pre-match routine, I get my sweat going. And about 15 minutes before my match came up, I would grab my magazine, I'd go out and I go into a different room or a locker room, and I'd tell one of my teammates, I'd say, hey man, come get me when I'm up, when it's like 2 minutes before I got to step on the mat. And I would go and I would read. I would just remove my mind from the situation, because I didn't need to be there. I needed to be just relaxed and comfortable. I didn't need to build this up, because the more I built it up as a don't fail moment, then the more I got tense and the more I wouldn't perform. So for me, and this works for a lot more. It doesn't work for everybody, but works for a lot more people than people realize. Is pull yourself away from that tension, pull yourself away from that moment, because all I needed to do was flip the switch and boom, locked in, and I was out there. So he would come get me about 2 minutes before my match. I would take my warm ups off and I'd do a couple things. I did the whole routine. I do 32 jumps, 16 were double jumps, and I do this whole routine. It took me about a minute to do this routine, and boom, I'm on the mat. And it didn't take me more than a snap of my fingers to really to lock in and be ready to compete. So it's like anybody, like this fear of public speaking that most people have.
Hmm.
Most of the fear and anxiety is in the moment leading up to it. Once you start talking, things sort of mellow out, and a lot of people can get more comfortable behind the microphone. Well, if that's the case, minimize the tension period. And the tension period is like that 15 minutes leading up before you're behind the microphone, right? Do something different. Make a phone call. Read an article. Do something to take your mind off that moment, out of that tension, because you're going to lock in. If you know the material, if you've done the preparation, if you've practiced your speech and you have your notes, then you can speak. If you can speak to one person in a conversation about it, then you can speak to 1,000 people in an audience about it. It's just a matter of removing yourself from that tension, so you can be in your peak performance state, so you can be in that flow state.
I love that. Love that, Jim. Yeah, thanks a lot for this. So let's just recap here before we close off. So, uh, your blueprint for success, the 4 steps. So, be aligned. So know what you value. Know
Right.
what's important to you, And number two is to have goals and set goals that are aligned with that value and whatever that is important to you. And also number three, to be in an environment of excellence, is which I really, really love here. Because I had to go through a lot of things like that to remove certain people from my life, or remove myself from certain people in my life,
Sure.
and be with the room of excellence, so environment of excellence. And the fourth and final one, these four steps are really simple, and the last one is very, very important, is to follow through.
Yeah.
You can you can watch The Secret and trying to wish yourself to your goals, but
Right.
I mean, you need to plant that seed and then also follow through. That's the only way that you're going to get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
So
And,
those
and can I
four
want
steps.
can I give you the sort of foundation of all of this, which is really
Yeah,
interesting?
yeah, for
So,
sure.
um, I have this podcast, Success Through Failure, where I interview all these amazing people, and I always ask them, what is a habit that sets you apart from others? And something you do on a regular basis. And it's fascinating how many give me almost the same answer. And I tell my audience sometimes, I'm like, listen, I didn't plan this. I didn't plant this. I didn't tell him to answer it this way. Like, it's just every successful person has this sort of moment of pause, right? They they journal every day or regularly. They meditate. It's amazing how many meditate. Spending time in prayer, spending just quiet time, thinking. They turn off the radio on their drive to work when they're running or working out or something like that. But it's this moment of pause, right? They work with a coach. They hire a mindset coach or an action coach, right? And it's this moment of pause. So I've defined it as I've termed it as a productive pause. So I call it the productive pause. And the productive pause I define as this: it's a short period of focused reflection around specific questions that leads to clarity of action and peace of mind. So again, I'll give that definition again. It's a productive pause. It's a short moment of pause, where defined by sorry, losing track here. So it is a short period of focused reflection around specific questions that leads to clarity of action and peace of mind. So clarity of action and peace of mind, which is something we're all looking for, right? We're all looking for that clarity. We're all looking for that peace of mind. And it's amazing how many of my guests do this on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a regular basis. And so that's the whole foundation of this. So if you're willing to get off the treadmill of life and actually implement these, definitely do the four things that I talked to you about, these four steps: identifying your core values, creating goals that align with those values, and then your environment of excellence, and creating a plan for follow through. If you take that pause, that productive pause, and do these things, everything's going to change for you.
Yeah. And exactly, like, if for a lot of people out there that do not know what their core values are, and have a hard time of figuring out what they want to do, I think this productive pause is really going to help, because it's a moment of reflection, and these thoughts are just going to come to your head, and then you're going to start seeing what is important to you and what your goals are. So doing this on a regular basis will help you find yourself and be more aware of yourself as well before you start doing these. If you're having trouble, finding out what you want to do. All right. Well, Jim, thanks a lot. I'm going to put a link to for anybody that wants to get in touch with you or learn more about you, listen to your podcast at the bottom of this session.
Right.
But do a quick plug real quick about your site and what it is.
Sure. Yeah, it's jimharshawjr.com. So Jim Harshaw, HARSHAW JR, jimharshawjr.com. You can get access to, I've got a goal setting template in there. As a matter of fact, I actually have the Reveal Your Path 4-step blueprint for success. Everything I just went through there, I have that. If you go to my website, actually, if you opt in on any of the email opt-ins on the site, you will get access to it's a PDF, about a 3 or 4 page PDF that outlines sort of the steps that we just talked about, those 4 steps. It has also includes a goal setting template worksheet that'll help you. It's thorough. It's 1 page. It's really powerful. And then that has action plans from every single episode, from every interview that I've done. I've taken the best content and made like a 1 to 2 page PDF from each of those interviews. So tons of great content there if you go to jimharshawjr.com.
And a lot of those interviews consist of astronauts, NFL players, UFC fighters, a lot of high level people, entrepreneurs, athletes. So, so the link I'll put it at the bottom of the session. And guys, make sure you listen to Jim's podcast as well. Thanks a lot, Jim, for coming on. Great content as always. And I've never done any sessions this early in the morning, but forget coffee, man. Just have a talk with Jim. You don't need any coffee.
Good stuff.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jim. Take care.
Thank you, Luke. Have a good one.